After 21 years, they didn't even spell my name right on the agenda slide. It blinked at me from the wall-mounted screen in 32-point Helvetica. Leadership transition. Michael Garrison, SVP Enterprise Accounts. Garrison. Like I was some stranger walking in off the street. After everything I'd done for them. That typo hit harder than the contents of the slide itself. I'm Michael Garrity, 47 years old, Senior Vice President of Enterprise Accounts at Wexler & Reed. Or, at least, I was, until about 7 minutes into a meeting I didn't even know I was being walked into. The coffee in my hand was still warm when it happened. Tuesday, 8:04 a.m. Conference Room, 12B, mid-floor, Midtown Manhattan. The room was full. Heads of departments, a few junior reps, even Marissa from legal who never came to internal meetings unless something was being signed or settled. Sierra Lang took the head seat like she'd been born into it. She hadn't. She'd been installed 8 weeks ago. Chief Growth Officer, a title nobody understood but everyone was told to respect. She'd come from a fast-twitch VC-backed startup that burned out just as quickly as it lit up. Now she was here, full of language, energy, disruptive momentum. She called it in her first company-wide email. I remember reading that from my phone while boarding a flight to close a deal she'd probably never even heard of. This morning, we're announcing a future-forward leadership refresh, she said, smiling like this was all just the next slide in a bright and shiny deck. I didn't flinch. Not yet. I'd seen too many of these reorgs. They usually meant someone was being promoted sideways and someone else was about to spend more time with their family. Then she kept going. Effective immediately, Michael will be transitioning out of his current role to make space for a more digitally aligned sales strategy. We're introducing Travis Moon as Director of Enterprise Relationships. Travis Moon, 23 years old, just out of a boot camp program in Denver. He sold SaaS licenses to vape companies for 6 months before Sierra scooped him up and started calling him a client whisperer. My eyes tracked across the table. Nobody made eye contact. Sierra gestured toward him like she was unveiling a new iPhone. Travis really vibes with younger founders. He's TikTok fluent, crypto native, and deeply embedded in creator culture. Exactly the kind of voice we want representing us in enterprise growth. I cleared my throat. I closed 81% of our top accounts last fiscal year. She nodded, like I'd said the weather was nice. And we appreciate your service, like I was a retirement-bound janitor. I kept my tone level. Am I being fired? She laughed, just a little. Of course not, Michael. We're just going young. The market's changed. Your Rolodex is from a dead decade. That one landed. But I still didn't move. Then she muttered it. Low enough that only I caught it. Bastard. It didn't shock me. I'd heard the whispers. That I was the old guard. That I was a blocker. That I wouldn't roll over and make room for her vision. They were right. I wouldn't, but not because I was stubborn, because I knew how this business actually ran. I'd built the foundation she was trying to decorate. Still, I stood, smoothed my tie, buttoned my jacket, and walked out without a word. I took the long hallway toward the elevator bank. The city shimmered outside the glass. Indifferent and eternal. I passed HR's open door. No one looked up, but when I reached the lobby, that's when I heard it. Phones, ringing. Not one or two. All of them. My accounts. Calling in. Wondering where I was. Why I hadn't joined the morning call. Why the junior who answered couldn't spell their company's name, much less negotiate a renewal. I kept walking. Past reception. Past security. I smiled. But I said, nothing. Not yet. The moment I handed over the black binder, I knew they wouldn't survive it. I placed it gently on the edge of Sierra Lang's glass desk. Her assistant, that kid with the hollow stare and overpriced glasses, reached for it like it might explode. I didn't flinch. Just nodded, turned, and left. It looked unremarkable from the outside. a beat-up moleskin with a frayed elastic band and worn corners. You'd think it held half-written poems or a to-do list. You'd be wrong. That binder was the spine of Wexler and Reed's enterprise portfolio. 21 years of handwritten leverage meeting notes, off-the-record handshake agreements, CFO birthdays, the names of assistants who actually made things move, call logs, side deals, renegotiation timelines, first impressions, grudges, the stuff that doesn't make it into Salesforce, the stuff that makes or breaks relationships. I'd never digitized it, never backed it up. That wasn't an oversight. It was insulation. Insurance. No one else had touched it. Not once. My last VP of sales used to joke the entire company would flatline if I ever got hit by a bus. Sierra thought I was a dinosaur for carrying a notebook. The truth was, it made me untouchable, until she thought she didn't need me anymore. The moment her assistant slid that binder across her desk, she probably thought she'd won. She didn't understand that all she had was an index, a list of names without context, numbers without nuance, contracts without connection. She'd never seen what loyalty actually costs to earn, or how fast it disappears when you mistake control for influence. I was back in my apartment 43 minutes later when the first message hit my phone. Then the second. Then the third. 3 of our largest clients had gone completely dark. No replies to emails, canceled renewal calls. One even pulled their sales data access. That one stung. It was our flagship fintech client. The one I'd brought over from my city days, the one whose CEO called me every March before board planning. The 4th client didn't go dark. He called me directly. "Where the hell are you?" His voice crackled through the speaker. "Who's this kid that just called me about moving our contract to a new growth tier? Is this a joke?" I didn't answer. I just let the voicemail finish, then deleted it. Not out of spite, out of timing. They'd get my voice soon enough. Right now, I wanted silence to speak for me. I poured a drink and stared out the window. Below me, Manhattan moved on like it always did, unaware of the small implosions happening inside glass towers. I thought about that binder. How many times it saved deals no one even knew were at risk. The way it held my whole career, compressed into ink and shorthand and initials that only I understood. Sierra didn't rise because she earned it. She rose because she was slippery. She knew how to pitch herself like a product launch, rebrand, pivot, upsell. She didn't build anything. She hopped from company to company like stones across a creek, never long enough to carry failure, just enough to borrow success. 2 hours after I left, my phone buzzed again. Not an email, a voicemail. It was from Philip Dane, chairman of the board. 8 words. "Call me. I don't know what's happening." I played it twice. The second time, I smiled. Then I booked a flight to Las Vegas. Not for blackjack or some weekend escape. Vegas was where Lauren Maher, CEO of a $1 trillion logistics platform, happened to live. We'd met 12 years ago over flatbread and bad wine at a regional tech summit. I helped renegotiate his first API integration. He once told me, "You ever leave that place, you call me before anyone else." I never forgot it. Friday was the Chicago convention. Maher's keynote was at 10 a.m. I sent a text to Philip Dane. "They'll understand soon enough. Watch Chicago. Friday." Then I put my phone face down and let the silence thicken. They always forget who actually knows the clients. Chicago's McCormick Place looked like a digital city dropped inside an airplane hangar. Rows of glowing booths, demo stages blasting synth music, branded lanyards everywhere. The air hummed with caffeine and pre-IPO anxiety. People talked fast, smiled faster, but one thing was already clear by 10 a.m. Wexler and Reed's booth was a ghost town. Their new vinyl signage looked expensive, bold fonts, over-designed slogans, some nonsense about scaling trust in the cloud age. Travis stood near the edge with a nervous smile, trying to hand out branded water bottles. A few interns hovered, pretending to look busy. Nobody stopped. The clients knew. Sierra had scheduled a renewal celebration lunch for noon. I saw the RSVP list. She was expecting the CEO, VP of Ops, and 2 directors from Behringer Freight Technologies. Our second largest enterprise contract. 9% of annual recurring revenue. I'd signed them 7 years ago when they were a struggling logistics startup with a busted supply chain and no leverage. They weren't going to that lunch. They were in a private suite on the 3rd floor. I'd arrived through the loading dock, no badge, no fanfare. Just walked through the back with a catering crew and disappeared upstairs. The VP of Ops, Shelley Byrne, met me with a hug and a glass of water like we were old friends. Because we were. Shelley was the one who'd called me in 2018, panicked, 3 days from missing payroll. I'd torn up their renewal contract and wrote a one-off billing plan to buy them 3 months of breathing room. Saved her job. Saved the company. When her mother got sick in 2019, I sent flowers. Not from Wexler and Reed. Just from me. She never forgot it. Neither did Paul Nystrom, their CEO. He paced the suite, talking fast, barely containing his fury. She tried to raise our price, 20%, he said, slamming his hand on the table. After everything, no conversation, just an email with a slide deck attached. I listened. I didn't pitch. I didn't need to. They said you'd retired, Shelley added, that you'd moved on to new projects. I should have known better. None of this was in the CRM. No record of the calls at 2 a.m. during their Series B meltdown. No log of the dinner I had with Paul the night before his IPO, where he admitted he hadn't slept in 4 days and was terrified of screwing everything up. He cried over a steak. I kept it to myself. At 1:13 p.m., the termination notice went out. Not a whisper. Not a warning. A cold, 6-line email, addressed to Sierra, Travis, Legal, and Billing. Subject, termination of agreement, effective immediately. By 3 p.m., another client followed. Smaller, but loud. Their head of IT tweeted something cryptic about respecting legacy relationships that got picked up by industry news. Sierra's booth went from empty to radioactive. Interns vanished. Travis was nowhere to be seen. She stood alone, tapping her phone like it owed her something. Every call was probably to someone asking, "What the hell is happening?" I never saw her panic before. She wore confidence like armor, sharp, glossy, manufactured. But armor cracks. And I know what panic looks like. It's the way her left foot kept tapping. The clenched jaw, the forced smiles when she spoke to no one. I took the long hallway down from the 3rd floor suite. Security nodded as I passed. I didn't wear a badge. I didn't need one. Outside, the Chicago wind cut through my coat as I stepped onto the curb. A town car waited. Engine humming. Sierra was out there too. On the phone. Other hand clutched around a tablet. Voice sharp, desperate, fighting to hold the narrative together. She turned when she saw movement, her eyes locked on me. I didn't stop, didn't wave, didn't blink. I just walked past. She turned fully, her lips moving like she might call out. But I was already gone. It's not revenge if it's just the truth. The night after Chicago, I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. I'd been running on adrenaline and something colder. Not anger, exactly. Something more surgical. Like focus sharpened to a razor edge. I'd spent 21 years watching how stories get rewritten from the top down. I knew what was coming next. Sierra was going to spin it. She'd draft some internal memo blaming legacy account fatigue and changing buyer profiles. She'd name-drop a few VCs and call it market realignment. Travis would post a selfie in front of a whiteboard about learning from friction. I could see it before it even happened, so I didn't wait. I'd already started collecting receipts before they walked me out. Not because I wanted to use them. Because I knew I'd need to. You don't stay in a company that long without seeing how people behave when the ladder starts to shake. And Sierra? She was shaking already. The performance reports were the first thread to pull. I had the originals, the ones I submitted, the numbers I'd personally closed, but the versions she showed the board, they didn't match. She inflated her strategic pipeline influence by 60%. Took credit for 3 accounts that came in through referral paths I built a decade ago. Slapped her name on top of Q2 like she'd written it in her own blood. Then there was the slide deck, the one she showed at the June strategy offsite. I didn't see it at the time, wasn't in the room, but someone sent me a screen grab 2 days after. A slide titled, "Why We Must Go Young." It had charts, some AI-generated bullsh times T on millennial buying power, and a fabricated quote from one of our clients. I called the client myself. He laughed. Said he never said it, never even talked to her. It got worse. I went back through the finance systems. My access still worked longer than it should have. Buried in the expense reports were steakhouse dinners that had nothing to do with our pipeline. A 5-figure dinner at Mayfair Grill with a VC firm we weren't even in talks with. 2 hotel receipts from off-site planning sessions in Napa same weekend. Travis posted an Instagram story of wine tasting in the background. Paid for with company funds. Then I found the bonus memo. A $25,000 onboarding incentive. Wired to Travis's personal account before he'd even signed his first client. Approved by Sierra. Buried under discretionary marketing expenses. Not even the CFO had seen it, so I packaged it, everything, screenshots, PDFs, voicemails, forwarded emails, all of it, meticulously labeled and time-stamped. I sent it in one email. No burner address, no cloak and dagger. Just a direct message to the board, legal, finance, and PR. Subject line. Documentation. Material misconduct. I BCC'd Sierra. That was Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, Travis was on leave. His calendar went dark. Company Slack scrubbed his profile by noon. Sierra deleted her Twitter by 3 p.m. She said it was for mental clarity. Stock dipped 11% by market close. I waited. At 6:42 p.m., I got a call from Philip Dane, board chair. "Can we meet?" he asked. We picked a hotel near Bryant Park. Quiet. Private. I booked the suite. When he arrived, he looked 10 years older than he had at last year's investor summit. He didn't ask for pleasantries. "How far are you going to take this?" he said. Voice low. I walked to the minibar, poured 2 glasses. Neat. No garnish. I handed him one. Held mine in the air like a silent toast. "That," I said, "depends how honest your statement is. The only thing louder than betrayal is silence." Monday morning, 6:38 a.m. My inbox lit up with a subject line that told me everything before I even clicked. Staff update. Leadership change. No name in the header. Just cold, sterile language like someone had run the sentence through 3 legal filters and drained it of all feeling. I opened the message and read the single paragraph that had been sent to every employee. Top to bottom. Effective immediately, Sierra Lang is no longer with the company. We thank her for her service and wish her well in future endeavors. No detail, no explanation, no press release quote from her about next chapters or exciting opportunities. Just a clean break and the corporate equivalent of tossing a body into the river. But I already knew the truth. The real story had been sitting in embargoed headlines all weekend. I had friends in media, old clients who owed me favors. One of them sent me the working title of a piece scheduled for Tuesday. Exec ousted after sales exodus, allegations of misconduct. They didn't even mention Travis. By that point, he was vapor. His work laptop was last seen on eBay. Nobody could reach him. His LinkedIn vanished. Company directory scrubbed. Whatever fantasy he was sold about being a tech prodigy, it disappeared faster than it arrived. My name, though, was suddenly everywhere. I wasn't looking for it, but it was there. In comments, posts, articles dissecting the downfall. People were tagging me like I'd just won a championship instead of surviving a corporate ambush. Screenshots of deals I'd closed 5 years ago were getting circulated like folktales. Some junior rep wrote, "He was the reason I stayed as long as I did. I hadn't spoken to her in 2 years. The board tried to be graceful." A call from Philip Dane came that afternoon. Said they'd greatly value my expertise during this transitional phase. Offered a consulting package with equity and some other shiny incentives. They said they wanted me to help rebuild the bridge to enterprise clients. I thanked them and declined. I wasn't going to be their cleanup crew. I wasn't going to patch a ship I'd already jumped from, let someone else mop the deck. That night, I met Shelley Byrne for dinner at a quiet restaurant in the West Village. She ordered the wine before I even sat down, like nothing had changed since Chicago. We didn't talk about deals. We didn't need to. Halfway through the meal, she looked at me and smiled. "They really thought it was the platform," she said. "But it was you." I didn't answer, just raised my glass. The next morning, I went back to the office. No escort, no welcome committee, no badge check. Security still recognized me. The place felt thinner, like the walls were trying to forget what they'd seen. I walked the corridor past the sales floor. A few heads turned, but no one said anything. Not out of fear, out of respect. Sierra's office was already half cleared out. The plants were gone. Whiteboard wiped clean. Some old awards still on the shelf, like someone had forgotten them in the rush to disappear. I opened the bottom drawer of her desk and pulled out the one thing that didn't belong to her, the black binder. Still there, untouched. Dust settling along the spine like it hadn't been moved in weeks. She never even opened it. I held it in my hands, heavier than I remembered, full of things that couldn't be translated into dashboards or PowerPoints. Just quiet, stubborn truth, the kind that doesn't vanish when you ignore it. I walked out the same way I came in. No announcement, no speech, just the sound of the door closing behind me, and the weight of finality, like a gavel drop,